It's time for breaking bread with Papa. Hey, don't you know? Hey, it's sourdough. Hey, it's time for breaking bread with Papa. Hey, don't you know? Hey, it's also a show.
Hey, everybody, welcome to another edition of Breaking Bread with Tom Papa. I'm very excited for the show today. Oh, we're going to have a good time. We have a special guest, George Motz, who is a hamburger aficionado. If the hamburger had a publicist, a hype man, it would be George. He is a great guest, and we have a great conversation all about the great American food, the hamburger. This man has dedicated his entire adult life to the hamburger. And you know, from listening to this podcast, I love when someone has an obsession about something that brings them joy in the food, drink, or comedy world. And George fits that description very well. We're going to have a great conversation with him. Also, I'd like to thank the good people at BetterHelp for supporting today's program. BetterHelp supports your mental health and gives you a way to tap in and use the resources of a therapist that will guide you and help you talk through whatever issues you have. And everybody's got issues, and sometimes you just need someone to call. Listeners get 10% off your first month by visiting our sponsor at betterhelp.com/papa. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/papa, PAPA, for 10% off your first month. A great service, doing good work and helping a lot of people. So thank you to the good people at BetterHelp. If you're watching this and you're on the YouTube and catching me, the video of me, I'm in a harsh fluorescent light. I have a strange headset on. There's a weird little lamp behind me. Bad artwork that looks like something no one would ever buy. I have a very drab drapery over my left-hand shoulder with piercing light trying to get through on the top. It sounds like Tommy's on the road. It looks like Tommy is on the road. Yeah, that's where I am. I have been on the road since I spoke to you last. I have been on a long journey that has taken me from New York to Indianapolis to Chicago and currently in Pittsburgh before I return home and make Sunday dinner for my family tomorrow. It's been a great trip. I'm not complaining, but you know, there are times when you check into a hotel and you're like, if I wasn't strong, if I wasn't on top of my game, this place might take me down. And this place, it'll be, when I throw the lights on, it'll be fine. But you know, you get this hotel drabness, and that's kind of where I'm at right now. But I only bring it up and point out that I'm on the road because I want to share with you what has happened to me on the road. And it's been a thing that's been happening to me since the beginning of this podcast and the beginning of my food journey, which a lot of you are on as well. I had plenty of people come up when I was signing books in Chicago, when I met people in Indianapolis, when I was in New Jersey, doing shows there, and of course in New York. And people keep shouting out their favorite episodes, saying which guests they like, that they listen to it all the time when they're cooking. It makes me very happy. So keep those messages coming, even if you don't see me live, because it gives me a good feeling that this is taking hold and we're all able to share and enjoy. And that's the whole point of this crazy endeavor. When I landed in New York, I headed to New York because I had shows at the Performing Arts Center in New Jersey, and I was flying cross country and reading one of my favorite authors, Jim Harrison. And I've spoken about Jim before. He was a great writer, wrote tons of books, tons of articles, a lot of poetry. And he was a bigger than life character who loved to eat and drink. And I apologize if I'm saying this for the 15th time. It easily could be, because I just admire him so much and his writing has such a great pace. But I will advise you, don't read Jim Harrison on a plane on your way to a great food city like New York unless you've got a fat wallet and don't mind increasing your fat body. Because I was reading A Really Big Lunch, which is a collection of his essays, I think from Esquire mostly, about him just writing about wine and food and this really big lunch. The essay that was the title of the book was about a 30-course meal that he had in France with these different chefs that put together this thing, and they took all recipes from, I don't know exactly what the demarcation was, but it was like from like the 1700s, the early 1800s. For some reason, they took that. They wanted great meals cooked the way they were cooked way back then, and they were going to recreate them. And it was a lot of weird things like boar's head soup, and a lot of wild game, a lot of oysters and creme fraiche, and a lot of an insane meal. And but that meal isn't that the story about that meal actually is one thing, but it's just the repeating of his joy of eating and drinking fine wines. And he's a guy that came from upper Michigan, lived in the woods, very blue collar background, hunts, fishes, lives in the woods, that kind of a guy, big gruff guy. He's got like one eye. And he is not a guy that you would think, just from looking at his picture, that he would be a guy just highlighting the best wines in the world. Doesn't even like California wines, thinks that they're too thick and paste and like paint. He just will write about a bottle of wine, a telegraph, a Vue telegraph from Chateauneuf-du-Pape, and he will just go on about it. And he's such a good writer, and he's so passionate about it, and putting it with his amazing food, and he's always eating alone somewhere. And you don't expect it from him, but before you know it, he's hammered, and it makes it seem like you should be doing it too. Because if this guy could do it, then anyone can do it. You don't have to be some highly educated, well-versed French food critic to really appreciate these wines from Burgundy and from Bandol. He's just an average guy, which makes his writing so deadly, because he writes about this stuff and you think, well, why aren't I doing this? Why aren't I eating like this? Now, footnote, side note, important to know, died in his 70s. And at the end of this book, he finds out he's got diabetes. So he's been eating this way his whole life, and then gets money. He wrote Legends of a Fall, and he was a screenwriter. He was kind of pals with Jack Nicholson. He was a crazy life. So he got some money at times and spent it on very expensive wine and food and all the stuff that you should eat like once in a blue moon. Seemed to be, if his writing is any indication, his steady diet. Against chicken breast because it's too plain. He wants the thighs. He wants the grease. He wants the dark meat. He wants the skin, that kind of a guy. So I'm reading him all the way into New York, and this has happened to me before. There was times when I read him and probably gained 10 pounds within 2 weeks. And I know it's coming, but I also, as a writer myself, I feel like you just have to keep reading the ones that get your brain popping. And Harrison definitely does that for me. And so I knew what I was in for. I knew what I was in for. And I landed in New York, and it was all still dusting off Omicron. Still, the people are milling around, but it's very cold. The restaurant's pretty empty. Didn't have a lot of friends in town. I wasn't really going to the Comedy Cellar. All my friends really weren't putting in for shows. Everybody was a little buttoned down and not really going out and doing too much. So I knew I wasn't going to just roll into a steakhouse with a good friend. But I had Jim Harrison's inspiration in my head from the cab ride from JFK into the city. And within 10 minutes of being there, I bought there's a nice wine shop around the corner from the hotel. And the whole time I'm doing this, I'm thinking Jim would be proud. And I went into this fine wine shop, spent maybe $30 on a Volpolo Podere Sipario. Probably butchering that name. All you have to know is it's an Italian red, a blend, and a beautiful, beautiful bottle. I went around the other corner. I got a smoked Gouda from this cheese shop and some bread, and that was it. That was going to be my dinner for Friday night before I had my shows on Saturday. I checked into the hotel, I had this bottle of wine and this big chunk of cheese and this big thing of bread, and I just watched whatever. I think there's some basketball game or something. I forget even what I watched, and I just holed up. A storm was coming, and I just popped open that bottle and ate that cheese, and it was heaven. It was literally heaven. I was like, Jim would be proud. If it stopped there, you'd be like, what's the problem? Why would you not read Jim Harrison on your way into a nice city? But it's not there because you have to just run the course. Things that pop up in your head and ways of living. And I went to Alidoro, which is my favorite sandwich shop in New York. And I got the Michelangelo, which is this prosciutto and provolone and spicy peppers and oil and vinegar on this beautiful roll. And you should only eat half of it. And of course, I ate the whole thing. And I was off to the races. I was just going to try and find the finer things that I could. And I went off to New Jersey and I did my shows. And I came back, and then the storm did hit. And I was going to meet up with a friend. And that fell through. And I will say, I was an inch from going across the street to Il Molino, to this Il Molino Prime, which is this amazing steakhouse, very expensive. It's so great, but it really is. Why? I stood in my hotel room by myself, having a debate with myself. Why do you think you deserve to spend that kind of money on a steak by yourself? What are you doing? Who are you going to enjoy this with? Well, I'm going to enjoy it. It will be me. And I've been working really hard, and I had 2 good shows last night. Why shouldn't I? Because a steakhouse is something you do with other people. That's when you go out and celebrate life and you enjoy sharing with others. Yeah, but I'm really hungry. Jim Harrison would probably do it. Jim Harrison has passed away. He was diabetic. Stop doing it. And I did that night. Just go downstairs and get a turkey sandwich from the bodega. I feel proud of myself that I put the brakes on and steered away from it. But then I flew off to Indianapolis. And in Indianapolis, my good friend Fortune told me about a hotel that had this great restaurant called Provision in this Ironworks hotel in Indianapolis, out of downtown. And I was like, it's probably okay. It was amazing. It was amazing. These people, every dish I got from there, and I ate from them twice. A chicken dish one night, this charred romaine with big, thick anchovies. So good. I couldn't believe it. I was like, holy cow, Fortune really nailed it. And the next night I had salmon And it really was like, it made me think when I get home, I have to step up my game. The amount of fresh goodness that was on top of this salmon. I'm always just making salmon and putting it out there almost like it's like a pill you have to take. She was so great to recommend that. And I was so happy to be there. But again, you know, pounding it out. And then backstage in Indianapolis, they gave me beers from the Triton Brewing Company, who make this amazing IPAs. I was going to say APAs, IPAs, and I had that, but not too bad. And then I decided, all right, let's downshift a little bit. Sure, that's great logic. Let's downshift as we're going to Chicago. I'm going to Chicago to play the City Winery, and I had 2 shows there. And I met my friend of course, where I'm staying was in the Renaissance Food District in the West Loop of Chicago. And thankfully, all the restaurants weren't open. But before I was doing my show, but I met my friend Brian, and we went to Little Goat, an amazing restaurant. It's like a diner, but with all of the best stuff. I had fresh corned beef hash and eggs and sourdough toast. Like when you get corned beef hash, like in a Greek diner in New Jersey, and it's all kind of like, mushed up like Alpo. This was big chunks. It was like just corned beef. Imagine corned beef taken off a sandwich and mixed together with potatoes and your eggs. And oh boy, so good. And then I go to the City Winery, I do my shows, and they give me a bottle of Pinot Noir, and I'm drinking that by myself. So happy. So happy. Brought my friend Erica Rhodes with me. She's drinking her white wine. I'm drinking that. Just a nice cap. And now I talk to you from Pittsburgh, my last night, and we only have one show, so we have an opportunity to eat something. And I asked around, and the thing that came back to me, if you really want to do something Pittsburgh, go to the Primanti Brothers. I may be mispronouncing that. What's that, I asked. It's a sandwich with meat and French fries and coleslaw on the sandwich. If you want to do something really Pittsburgh, that's where you go. No, thank you. I don't think so. But I don't know. The battle's not over. But Jim Harrison's hold on me is definitely waning. I'm heading back home. I'll make a simple Italian meal tomorrow night. I'll just be happy to be doing my own cooking in my own house. And I will be restored. And also, I'll get my butt on a bike and sweat a little, which I haven't done since I left. Is it the greatest? Yes. Is this a way you should live? Once in a while, but that's a great tour. I'm just looking at the list. That's a great little tour. And also a lot of solo stuff. And Jim always wrote about being solo in these restaurants. And I was kind of on my own because the Omicron is, I know I want to get out of this without getting it. And I'm close. I feel like I'm close. All the numbers are dropping and I'm close. I can possibly dodge it. So to go into crowded places, I just was solo. And this was nice. But I have to say, the bottle of wine and the cheese on that first night, that was my proudest moment. This is a great setup, by the way, for our guest, George Motz. He really, when you're talking about the quintessential American food, the burger is up there. That is one of America's signature dishes. And what's great about George, you'll see in the conversation, he's very passionate and very knowledgeable. And he made a documentary, what started the whole thing, called Hamburger America, where he talked to these people in these little one-off shops, not like the big chain restaurants, just little places that were making burgers, who didn't even know why they were really that important. And he, as great documentaries do, shines a light on this culture and these people and the thing that they're doing. And as I'm traveling to all of these cities, and we're going through this time in the country where people are worried that we're against each other, et cetera, and the parties are yelling at each other. You know, when you get out there and you're around people on every day, the temperature is lowered from what you see on the news, and people are just turning out in burger places. And that used to be the thing that people would lead their conversations with. What do you like to eat? Have you ever tried this burger? Not who did you vote for? Not what are your politics? For some reason, that's an opener now. And hopefully it'll go away. And with people like George shining a light on the burger and this conversation, and I hope you check out his stuff. Burgerland was his show on the Travel Channel. Go to his website. He's MOTZ, and he's always slinging it and always promoting it, the burger, and in a way, that way of life. And it's such a great thing, because these are the things that we really enjoy. Who the hell wants to talk about healthcare? Who the hell wants to talk about gerrymandering? I'd rather talk about a burger. And so does the other side. And everybody just wants to get along and just have a good time. And the burger, I hate to put too much weight on it, but I really do find that there is some meaning in it. And George is a great spokesperson for a way of life and just delicious burgers. So enjoy now the conversation with the one and only George Motz. Well, thanks for being here, George. This is really a treat. I'm very excited to talk with you. As I was mentioning off air, I'm love when people are obsessed with things, as I am with bread baking. And I went down this wormhole and I never came out of it. And I'm still obsessed and still love talking about it. So I'm gonna love talking to you about burgers.
I love bread too, though.
Oh, that's good. What started the obsession? Was it purely out of a love of burgers, or was it you ended up with some gig where they got introduced to you? Like, what? Give me the origin story.
The quick origin story is that about 20 years ago, I made a film called Hamburger America, just for fun.
Uh-huh.
I was working as a director of photography, traveling around the country, and I would notice that there are places like these mom and pop hamburger joints that I wanted to check out, and eventually would say, oh, I'm going to stay on the road for a couple of days and go check out this place in Wisconsin, or check out this place in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and bring a camera and record people telling me their stories about why they did what they did. And I learned pretty quickly they had no idea what they were doing. They knew what they were doing. They didn't know why they were important. They couldn't figure out why I was obsessed with them.
Right. That's interesting, because I did this thing with a similar thing with bakeries, and I would go around and talk to these people, and I would treat them like they were like stars, and they were like, I just make this shit every day.
Exactly. Right? It's weird. You say to yourself like this. I mean, you guys are making great burgers. You do it every day. And they're like, what's the big deal? Go away.
You're right.
So what? So here we are celebrating that. We need to celebrate people like that. This is why I started to realize I need to make a film about this.
Yeah.
I made a film about it. The film ended up getting a kind of a cult following. Ended up with I made a book, a travel book called Hamburger America, the Travel Guide.
Yeah.
Covered 100 places. Now the next one covered 150. It turned into a TV show. It was pretty wild. It was it was a crazy couple of years there. And then about 10 years ago, it was inducted into the National Archives as the film was, as a piece of culinary American history.
So cool. That is so great. How much of the story for you is it a cultural American story, and how much of it is a food story?
Ooh, I'd say half and half.
Yeah.
50-50. Originally, I thought it was going to be, 95% food, 5% the people who are making it, really.
Yeah.
And then I realized that it was equal amounts of, this beautiful American story, like, this hardworking, American story of ingenuity, and invention, really. And also about the food, because they were, there's not just one type of hamburger out there. And it's also not just one type of stunt burger, or it's not a bunch of stunt burgers out there. There actually are real regional hamburgers, which I discovered, which are beloved in their areas.
Right. Did you, when you say it's on the the cultural people part of it. Was it striking you like that these people were making it and it was their kind of like their story, or was it a reflection of the people who were eating it and like what it did to the people in the community of like why was America eating burgers?
I was never so interested in what people were eating and why they were eating it, because they were just there to do whatever the people who were making the burgers were doing.
Yeah.
I was more fascinated in the fact that there were generationals. It was a generational thing where you'd have somebody who built a restaurant would own it for 20 years and then say, you know what, I'm going to hand it off to my daughter or my cousin or something, and then it would go on for another 20 years, and it'd be this extended family.
Right.
And people who walk in to the restaurant would say to you, this is the grandson of the guy who made the first, blah, blah, blah. And I had these amazing stories, this lineage, and which they didn't even realize they really had their own histories.
Right. What is the general history of the burger in America?
The general history is that it came to America through New York.
Okay.
Immigrants coming from Germany. They would leave out of the port of Hamburg, and they would get to the States, and they would find the people who came before them, other German immigrants, had set up small Hamburg steak stands all over Lower Manhattan. And Hamburg steak was basically chopped beef, very important, cooked somehow, pattied and cooked somehow and served with potatoes and gravy. Eaten with a knife and a fork, or just a fork.
Right.
At some point, it migrated with the Germans to the Midwest. And at that point, it became a portable food when it ended up going to state fairs. And people don't realize that the hot dog predates, as a portable food, that predates the hamburger by about 12 years, which is also a staple of the state fair.
Right.
And you can imagine if you were selling Hamburg steaks with gravy and a knife and a fork, and you see a hot dog walk by and you go like, that's a great idea. That's a great idea. Next thing you know, Hamburg steak on a bun, or actually not even a bun back then. It was a piece of bread.
Right. And that was German also, right? The hot dog was German. Right.
Well, Hamburg came from Hamburg and Frankfurters came from Frankfurt.
Right. Man, the state fairs, they are powerful forces.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then do you know who was the first hamburger stand or like of note, yeah, of course.
One of those great questions. No, I don't know. No one's ever know, because it's believed, of course, and again, the same as people not realizing how important it was that they made hamburgers back then. It was really not important.
Right.
It was just a thing. It was just a thing make so you can keep going at the fair. Right. It was sustenance, it was not important at all. And so there were no records of who really invented the hamburger or when it happened. We do know that it probably happened in 8 different places almost at the same time. It's really hard to pinpoint who was the first. People love to say, oh, it was Fletch Davis in Texas. No, it was Charlie Negreen in Wisconsin. And I know all these names because people talk to me about this all the time, literally talking at me and trying to explain to me that my grandfather invented it. No, I don't think he did. He may have, but it didn't really become a big thing until the hamburger became popular because of White Castle in the 1920s. Really?
White Castle is the 20s.
Yeah. It predates everybody. They're one of the most important hamburger restaurants stories in America, right there, because they saved the American hamburger from imminent demise.
Why was it? What do you mean? Why demise?
Well, because at that point, because of a guy named totally spacing his name now, The Jungle. Upton Sinclair wrote a book called The Jungle.
Right.
In the early part of the 20th century, it was all about the woes of the meatpacking industry in Chicago. Everybody was turned off to packed beef at that point. Mostly ground beef was considered just, hands off. It could be humans, it could be animals, who knows, other animals, rats.
Oh man.
Yeah, the story. Upton Sinclair wrote a very, very brave story back then, but it created the need for the FDA, and the FDA came around and federal oversight for meat and the food industry.
Right.
At that point,
Oh,
It took years, and it was White Castle was the first hamburger restaurant to start to openly grind beef in the restaurant, serve fresh ground patties, and then educate people to why hamburger is a good thing, basically. And they were White Castle, so they were white, so the place was clean and white. It was always super clean. They'd always hose it down at the end of every day, and it was. The little units were actually based on the Chicago Water Tower, which was like a small little castle. That was
right. Yeah, I know that spot.
Ability, that was the
right. And so it was Chicago. It started in Chicago, White Castle?
Actually didn't. It started in Topeka, Kansas.
Topeka, Kansas. Man, you're blowing my mind on all these perceptions I've carried my whole life. I, growing up in New Jersey, always just thought it was a Northeast. It had to be a New York thing because they were so dominant when I was a kid.
New York it plays a very important part, though, because New York was the idea of something called the New York system of the White Castle hamburger started in New York, basically, or sort of. Kind of people. It may have started in Ohio, it may have started in New York, but it was where they added onions to the burger. And if you ever had a White Castle slider, it's addictive. It's one of those things where you're like, okay, that's
yeah.
I'm not advocating for today's White Castle. I think it's kind of lost its way, unfortunately. But the original White Castle burger, it really is it is the most important burger, I think, in America.
Wow, that is amazing. My father was obsessed with them, and we would go, and I just have this very vivid memory of sitting in the car in the winter, and we had so many of them lined up on the dashboard. It was just like, how many could you eat? And the place was, the car windows were all steamy, and just sitting there plowing down these White Castles. Oh, it was heaven.
Yeah. So also really cool. There's still places in America where you can go and get an original style White Castle style hamburger. And one of them is in Jersey, in Hackensack.
Oh, really? Oh.
And surprisingly, the place is called White Manna because at that point, if you were in the 1920s and 30s, if you were not putting the word white in the word as a word in your restaurant name, you weren't going to sell hamburgers.
Oh. What's the difference between a modern White Castle on Route 17 and the original version that you're talking about?
It's a little complicated, but let's just say that, at some point they were innovating in the 40s and they went to frozen patties because they were able to freeze meat during World War II for meat rationing.
Right.
So they started to stockpile and freeze meat. And then they basically by accident invented the frozen patty. Which they realized, oh my God, we could store these for years.
Right.
Quality kind of went down at that point. There's still good burgers. They're not the fresh ground beef burgers. The good news is that there were places that held on to the tradition, the original tradition, and now here, literally 100 years later, almost to the day, they're still making those burgers, and they're making it the way White Castle used to make them.
Wow, that's impressive.
Tons of there are 40 or 50 in America that I know of.
Oh, really? And are they all like single, like one-offs, or is it like chains, or?
So some of them are small chains. Most of them are just one-offs, or they were chained down to one unit. But old mom and pop places that have little sliders with onions on them that are nothing but onions and beef and bread, and that's it. Not even cheese.
Oh man, they're so good. They're so good. How did you, like, at what point when you're making the film and you're starting to, your brain's starting to percolate and your taste buds are percolating, did you start to hone in on like what was your favorite, like the stuff how did your palate your burger palate mature, and at what point in making the film?
Well, I had a major turning point way before I made the film that caused me to really become obsessed with hamburgers, and that was I ate a burger for the first time at the Apple Pan in Los Angeles. Now, I don't know if you've been to the Apple Pan. It's a mom and pop. It's a place that time forgot. You walk in there, and there are guys with the white paper caps and the crisp white aprons, and then, can I help you? It's like a throwback to 1940 something.
Yeah.
It is truly, it's an icon, and it is a wonderful place to eat. It's a wonderful place to sort of learn about hamburger culture. Because it's not about sustenance, it's not about eating. It's also about, the place, there's red tartan plaid wallpaper that just goes way back, and I don't think it's ever changed. And they do change it, but they've never changed the look of the place. It is just a wonderful place.
Yeah.
And that was the first time I actually appreciated the American hamburger, was sitting there at midnight.
Yeah. Hamburger. Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, those places, they just have, That's stuff where it's actually, these people aren't working at a hamburger place. This is their profession, right?
Yeah.
Like,
no, they worked there for 50 years in some cases.
right,
50
right.
years.
Oh my God. And was the quality of it, how much of it was the quality of the burger and and how much of it was like the atmosphere of the place?
Well, I've always said that if you were gonna, like, make yourself a pina colada
Mhm.
in your kitchen, it tastes great, whatever. But then you have a pina colada, you're sitting on the beach and the ocean's there, and you're like, it's the same freaking pina colada, but it tastes so much better, So it's hard to
Totally.
say. If I were to make the same burger at the Apple
Yeah.
home, it wouldn't taste the same. It wouldn't taste as good as sitting there and just sucking up that environment.
Yeah, and having someone else make it. That's
Right.
a good part too. But I looked at I watched a video of yours when you were making, I think it was the double stack that came from Bob's Big Boy.
Yeah.
And man, oh man. First of all, your videos are so great to watch. Everybody should go check them out. There's so much great content between the books and the online stuff and appearances on Fallon and all this stuff. You're very watchable. I really get a kick out of it. And you are very American. There is definitely an American vibe to you. You're not a guy that's rolling around Venice. This is and I love watching it. But when you say like cooking at home, you're basically in your apartment, it looks like, and you're making this burger that originated at Bob's Big Boy. And I'm telling you, that thing makes me so hungry that you making that so far from where Bob's Big Boy is. I'm like, that version of your thing, holy cow, it makes you want to just run to the supermarket and get all the ingredients.
Which is, it's important to think of the ingredients, because what I do is I try to make sure that people understand like the importance of the exact ingredients and the exact ratios and how to make that burger, because otherwise you can slip by a little bit by, oh, I don't want a white bun, I want a wheat bun, and then you're somewhere else and you're going away. Oh, I don't want iceberg, I want green leaf lettuce. No, you're getting away from it again. So until you actually like think about all those elements and the ingredients, how they work together, we even go through, we're looking at burgers and we're dissecting them. We make sure that the layers are correct. Like the sauce is not up on top of the sauce, where it should be on the bottom, whatever it is.
Right.
Because that really becomes part of the flavor profile, how you build that burger.
Right. Yeah. When you went pretty quickly by it when you were putting it together, and you're like, and you say like you have the chopped iceberg lettuce and the leafy stuff, and it was like, oh shit, he's right. I mean, every time I ruin something I make at home, it's because I'm using the big leafy bogus part of it.
Yeah, exactly. And I always say to people, hey, you know what, Bob's Big Boy, they'll make 1,000 of those this week, or 2,000 or 3,000. Why would you want to make your own version of that burger when that's the burger you really want?
Right. Right. Exactly. How many, what are the, because the Bob's Big Boy, that from that video, that was I think it's double stack. Is that what it's called? Double
Stack, but there's only one slice of cheese.
Right. Double stack with one slice of cheese. And it was so
think
cool.
About the Big Mac. The Big Mac also only has one slice of cheese, but the Big Mac was invented like 20, 30 years later. So
Right. What were the so the double stack is like this one thing, and then you've got like the double it in and out. What are the in the timeline? What are like you start off with the White Castle with those burger, and what are the big markers? Like when do we get to the cheeseburger? When do you get to the big things? And what are those?
White Castle 1921. You have the 1930s. You have Bob's Big Boy. I forgot what year now. I'm drawing a blank. Then at the same time, pretty much the same time, McDonald's and In-N-Out, and Carl's Jr. And a lot of them happened at the same time at that point in the 1940s, late 30s, early 40s.
Okay.
Then you don't really get into like the Whopper and the Big Mac until the 60s. So
oh wow.
Forget about that. It really was not a thing in the fast food. I'm not really good at speaking about the fast food world. It's like I only focus on mom and pops.
Yeah.
I do know some of the timeline, and it's amazing how things like Steak and Shake existed way before all of them. They're probably the 1930s, Steak and Shake.
Right. Man, it's amazing like that the origin of all that stuff is all around that same time, that they're all just popping up at that same thing. What is more popular? What is more popular? This is just an out of
good.
Hot dogs or hamburgers?
Definitely hamburgers.
They are, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, by a long shot, I would imagine.
By a long shot. I think that hot dogs have fallen off in popularity, and just recently, for sure, because of something that we call the better burger category. The burger has had a meteoric rise that has left the hot dog in the dust, unfortunately. I mean, I love hot dogs
Yeah.
in the dust.
Yeah. Everybody's got a struggle, right? Everybody's got something to work through. Everybody's got obstacles. Everybody has things that they have to accomplish, and their own brain getting in the way, or issues that have happened to you. Maybe some tragedies, maybe some things that are just confusing, maybe some things that are just unsettling. And these little roadblocks get in your way as you're going about your year and trying to do the best that you can. And sometimes you're able to go it alone, and sometimes you need a little help. Well, the good people at BetterHelp are there for you. And I really encourage, if you're in the need of talking to somebody and figuring some stuff out and just want to bounce some things off, or maybe you've got some real issues and you haven't been able to fix them up yourself, and your friends and family aren't really getting you through it, maybe you need to talk to somebody. BetterHelp will assess your needs and match you with your own licensed professional therapist. You can start communicating in under 48 hours. It's not a crisis line or self-help line. It's professional counseling done securely online. And they give you the resource and the ability to message your counselor anytime you want. You get timely and thoughtful responses. You can schedule a weekly video or phone session. BetterHelp is committed to facilitating great therapeutic matches, so they make it easy and free to change counselors if needed. The service is available for clients worldwide, and they'll find a particular expertise that you need online. Don't limit yourself to the counselors located near you. They will hook you up with somebody somewhere in the world that knows what you need and will help you out. If you got depression, stress, anxiety, relationship stuff, sleeping stuff, trauma, family conflicts, this is the group for you. They're convenient, professional, affordable. Check out testimonials daily on their site at betterhelp.com. And if you want to start living a happier life today, as a listener, you get 10% off the first month by visiting our sponsor at betterhelp.com/papa. That's HELP.com/papa. And you can join over 1 million people who have taken charge of their mental health. Again, that's BetterHelp, HELP.com/papa. 10% off your first month. You can't go wrong. Thank you to our good pals at BetterHelp. What are some of the modern things, like, because burgers have popped up in a lot of different places, very swanky cocktail bars and places, and they did have like a big gold rush. Are there some that are too pretentious? Like,
Oh,
is
yeah.
there? Yeah.
I'd say most are too pretentious.
Yeah.
I stick to beef, cheese, bun. I mean, I pretty much stick to the basics. Those
Right.
are the burgers that I really want. And I tell people all the time that if you're looking for a great burger, you look for the one you're gonna say to yourself, I'm gonna come back tomorrow or next week for that. Not the one that, oh, that was so rich and I'll see you next month or next year. It's not. A hamburger really should be a daily beater sort of thing, and not that you're going to go back every, but think about the burger that you said that was just so satisfying because it just went right to that point where I'm satisfied, as opposed to like, oh, I'm so stoned on this burger, it's so good. That's not really what you want, unfortunately.
Right. Yeah. You don't need a sledgehammer to the gut and to your brain.
Or even or a sledgehammer to the wallet. The other thing I can't stand is people who make burgers that are, it's worth it, I'm sure, to spend that much money for a burger. But the reality is that the roots of a burger are really based on affordability and accessibility. And some burgers out there that are they're fantastic. They know who they are.
Yeah.
They're great if you can afford it, sure, knock yourself out. Sure. But the reality is that you're really going to go back and eat the daily beater every day, every time.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that is when you talk about it being like an American story. I mean, that is kind of the thing, right? It's like the everyman stuff. It's not the fancy, Bordeaux. Yeah. It's a can of beer.
The good side of that, though, is that the Better Burger category was prompted in a way by the gourmet food industry or restaurant or fine dining that started to put the lowly hamburger on their menus.
Right.
And that did actually prompt places that were using frozen beef to switch to fresh, which you've got this whole legion of people that either open restaurants 10 years ago or changed their ways 10 years ago to include fresh ground beef instead of frozen. And that did actually help to jumpstart or kickstart a sort of a renaissance in the world of hamburgers.
Right. Yeah.
This is why you're talking to me, because I mean, I would have been some wacky guy going like, burgers. But it's because of the popularity of the burger, and it's the freshness of the burger that can be that has basically made me relevant.
Right. Right. Exactly. You caught the wave.
Yeah, exactly.
What's your favorite side?
Ooh, that's a good question. People know me. People who know me know that I don't eat French fries very often unless they're really good.
Mm-hmm. Just
So
a personal
side
taste. Just a personal taste. You just never into them.
No, I think most French fries are bad. They're not not satisfying.
Right.
Yeah, so how many times have you had a French fry? You're like, oh man, it's not good. It sucks. It's cold or blah,
Yeah.
You never say that very often. You very infrequently do you say that about a hamburger.
Right.
So as a side, honestly, beer, or I tell people skip the fries and get another burger.
Right. And double up.
Exactly.
You've written a lot of books. You've written, I think it said 11 books.
No.
No.
Wow.
No.
I've written 4 now. So 3 are the same book that was updated twice.
Okay.
And so there's Hamburger America, the guidebook, and then there's also the cookbook, which we just got the green light to do the update for the cookbook. So that's happening.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So. And has has it opened up that skill in you? Like, do you cook more? Are you expanding out? Because I saw you also had things, even your videos are listed, not burgers.
Yeah. Well, Instagram has sort of changed the way I do a lot of things now. It's pretty fascinating. Where I have a bunch of fans who will look at my Instagram stories, and I post everything I eat. Pretty much everything I eat goes on Instagram stories. And also that does keep me eating well. So I'm not going to eat crap because I don't want to post it and tell and say, oh, why'd you eat that?
Right.
That does happen though. But I've noticed that once I'm posting stuff on Instagram to eat, people do want to know what I'm eating or how I made that. And I cook a lot. I come from a long line of my entire family. We're all cooks.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. We're all family cooks. We all learned from my grandmother and my mother, who's a great cook.
What was where did you grow up? Where was your grandmother?
I grew up in Long Island. My grandmother, South Carolina, though. My mom is from South Carolina and was plucked from South Carolina by my father, who lived in New York, and so she became a Northerner. She's still there at heart, and she is amazing in the kitchen because she doesn't do much. It's almost like she just sees a couple of ingredients. She goes, "Okay, dinner," and then, well, how'd you do that?
Oh, really?
It's totally effortless. Yeah. So we all learned from her that way.
Is it a Southern flair? What when you were a kid? What is the thing that you were most excited about?
Is that I don't know. All moms are different. My mother every once in a while she has this like hankering for pork fat. I mean, she's like, she'll call me. She'll say, "Mama needs ribs." I get that. It makes sense, right? Mama needs ribs. I grew up eating Southern breakfast, so grits and ham. I grew up eating pretty much everything, but I learned how to. The one thing that the Southerners are much better at than anybody else, I feel like, is deep frying.
Yeah.
People think, ooh, deep frying, and it's unhealthy and it never tastes right. So, but if you're a Southerner, deep frying is in your blood, literally. I mean, it's you know how to deep fry, and there's real science to it that really only Southerners can pull off. Also, Southern men cook more than anybody in the country because they're all hunters and gatherers.
Oh, I never put that together.
They cook in the field. So if you see a lot of like these like burly men who are out in the field hunting, they also all know how to cook, whether you're in Louisiana, North Carolina, South Carolina, they're all. So, I learned a lot from my mom because of her Southern food roots, for sure.
Yeah. So would you cook? Is it when you were a kid? Would you cook alongside her? Would you?
No, I mean, I did once in a while. I mean, my story was that my parents split up. My mom had to work 2 jobs. So I ended up as a kid, as a very young kid, cooking for my entire family. I was the oldest and cooked for everybody after school because she had a
Ah,
night job.
right.
And I learned a lot about cooking when you're, trial by fire.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not
Learned a
so
lot.
artsy fartsy at that point when you
Oh,
just want to
no,
get
it's like,
people fed.
yeah, where are my chicken nuggets?
Yeah.
But it was, you learn a lot. I learned about timing and everything else. And my mom taught me all about cooking, just mostly by osmosis. But
Yeah.
also in the last 15 years or so, I spent a lot of time in the kitchen with her, and we go through cookbooks and we go through old recipes from my grandmother, her grandmother.
Oh
And we've been
man.
really doing a lot of research and having a ton of fun just getting into the kitchen and bouncing ideas off each other.
Wow, man, that could be another book.
Oh, I hope so.
Yeah, really. I mean, that's the best. We have, it's very important, that stuff, because a lot of it gets lost unless you
Yeah.
actually sit down with them. And my mother did a thing where she took all her old recipes and put them down into this book and gave them to us for Christmas. And it's like, it's your mom's recipes. There's missing ingredients. There's no, there's no real measurements, it's just kind of like, but we all kind of, if you grew up with, you kind of get a sense of what it is. But and my sister has an index card box filled with all my grandmother's stuff.
Oh,
And it's
wow.
like, oh man, we should make 20 copies of that.
Yeah, no, you definitely should. I mean, this is the most important thing about cooking, is having a record of it. And I started working on the cookbook for the first time. I realized that, well, I really, I actually use my own cookbook to cook.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I'm like, where did I write that down? Oh, it's in my own book. Duh, that's where.
yeah, yeah. So when you're evolving like this, I mean, burgers are of course always going to be your staple. Is there another kind of category that would carry that kind of story? Even does that even exist? Is pizza maybe, or
Everything. I think everything is a story in everything.
yeah,
I just one of the very first to find the story in hamburgers. I feel like there's a
right.
story in everything. I mean, I truly believe that if you point a camera at somebody, you can probably get a great story out of them. And when I made the first film, what I did was I purposely didn't put any kind of voiceover. There's no titles. There's no subtitles or anything, any explanation to explain what's happening.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of Errol Morris, the filmmaker Errol Morris, who made a film called Vernon. His first film was called Vernon, Florida, and it literally is just a camera pointed at people and they're telling their story.
Wow.
And I figured if they can't tell their story without me interjecting, then they don't have a story to tell. So,
oh, interesting. Yeah.
I ended up getting I profiled 8 different hamburger restaurants, and you never hear my voice ever. One time you do, but it was just I did like a Hitchcock thing where I threw myself in there. But other than that, it's pretty much they tell the story and it's a good story. So I think you can find a story in anything.
Yeah, yeah. Are you still into making films?
Yeah, I do now commercial stuff for clients, and that's pretty much nothing. I haven't really have had it's been a long time since I've made a really good film that about a subject that I love. But I was working on a Southern trilogy. My entire family is in the shrimping and the oyster business in South Carolina.
Oh,
So I made 2 films made a film about shrimping, and I made a film about oystering in South Carolina. And I was working on the trilogy. The third part was moonshine.
Oh, wow.
And I got almost finished with it, and then I stopped, but I'll get back to that. And there's been
Yeah.
a lot of requests to make Hamburger America 2, make the second film, which I would love to go make.
Yeah, that would be great. Can I see the other films that you're talking about, the shrimp and the oyster?
Yes, they're out there somewhere. I may have to send
There.
you a link. They're maybe on my website. I can't remember where they are
All
anymore.
right. I'll
They're
do
out
the
there.
deep
Yeah,
dive.
definitely. Yeah.
I'll do the work. I got it. But I would love to see it. I mean, really, that sounds pretty amazing.
I made the shrimp film, and there were about maybe 15, 20 people in the film who are in the business, in the shrimp business, and some shrimpers, some people on land, people from restaurants I was speaking to. And then someone said to me, "Do you realize that you're related to every single person in the entire yeah,
Entire film?
entire film?" It's
Really?
everyone, every single one. Yeah.
That's hilarious. That's roots. Yeah, it's funny because I don't know if it's funny, but it's to not put too much weight on what you do, but there's that thing like that truly American story of the burger, and it really is. And like when you see like the the Southern California version, and then you have the Northeast, and then you've got the Chicago. And during this week when we're talking about all the divisiveness and the insurrection and all this stuff that's going on, it seems to me like there's all of these, we just need more voices like this that are just praising the things that we all have in common, because I really do believe that's more of that than there is of that stuff.
I agree. I mean, actually, when that happened last year, I posted the cover of the New York Times, and I said, hey, not to be political, I just said, hey, we're better than this.
Yeah.
And what I really meant was, we should be focusing on things like the hamburger.
For real.
We're good at we're good at being hamburger people. We're good at appreciating all the things that make us American. Why are we being so divisive? Why? What the hell is going on?
Yeah.
It was very embarrassing. It was a very embarrassing moment for the country. I think, obviously, for the world, really.
Yeah, it was horrible.
Yeah,
it was really horrible. And
along with my thought, right?
Yeah, no, 100%. And it's really no joke. I mean, I don't know if it's even reality, because I think they're just noisier. I bet more people when they meet each other are asking, do you know where there's a good burger, than they are, what party did you vote for?
Exactly right. And you go to the nice thing about the hamburger, it is apolitical, and for the most part, it's about eating. It's about getting along with the community and enjoying the people you're eating with. And I don't think people. It's really hard to find sort of like a combative hamburger joint.
Right, exactly. I know. Yeah, and the people that go into the business,
you sit over there. No, this is just all just eat. This is time to eat. This is we're eating to get out of here quickly, or the opposite is to be there for a while. And get to know you.
Yeah, be out on the road with your low blood sugar intact. All right, two more questions I have on before we go, about a little more specific. One, my wife wanted me to ask what's your position on veggie burgers?
Where should I position them?
Yeah. What's your take? Are there good ones? Should they be in the category?
It's unfortunate. The answer is very long, but I won't give you the long. I'll give you the short answer, which is, really you're better off eating a hamburger. Veggie burgers are funny because the ones that are actually made with vegetables they're just like they're like vomit. They're mushy, like, vomit piles. I don't think they're not very. I guess they're tasty. They can be tasty, but they're not a burger anymore, because unfortunately, a burger is defined as fresh ground beef and cooked somehow, patty cooked somehow.
Right.
You get into a veggie burger, you don't have that. You have like you have a crab cake. They have like something else going on there, which is not
right.
It's more of a vehicle to put it in your mouth, I guess, but I don't know. Then you get the other side of it, which is the Beyond Beef thing, which makes me bonkers, makes me insane.
Why?
Because it's made with, well, we did a count once, and the Impossible Beef has more than 21 ingredients in it.
Whoa.
To mimic a bad burger.
Right.
Yeah. I say bad because I've done the taste test. I've almost gotten in bed with those guys. Mach 1 was like, you're getting there. And then Mach 2 was like, it's pretty close, but still it's like they had the mouthfeel down, didn't have the flavor down.
Yeah.
So they're getting there. I do think there's a place for it for sure. I wouldn't say no to it. I would just say that, unfortunately, the two examples I'm thinking of, there's actually a third example I haven't even brought up yet, which is like the Boca burger, the frozen, or the one that looks like it's supposed to be a hamburger.
Yeah.
The vegetarians, hey, I'm eating a hamburger. I'm having a Boca burger. It's like, no, that's like the worst example of a burger. It's like a frozen, like piece of crap.
Right.
Really you're eating the equivalent of a frozen like high school patty.
Right. Yeah. It's very school cafeteria. Like,
I think they're living large. I'm like, no, you're not. Also, when I was talking to, not to get into details here, but I was talking to some people about like Beyond Beef and Impossible, and I realized that they're not gunning for the vegetarians. They couldn't give a crap about vegetarians, because vegetarians only make up 4% of the American consumer.
Whoa, 4%.
So what are they going to do with 4%? They want the other 96% of people to be eating Beyond and Impossible.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting because my kids don't eat meat, and they don't like the Impossible because of the fake blood. It's almost too meaty for them. They're like, it turns them off.
Hey, I would. There's so much good vegan food out there. Just stick with vegan. I don't
Yeah,
know
just
why
go.
mimic the burger. Let the burger be its thing.
Yeah.
Let the vegan thing be its thing. I had vegan dinner 2 nights ago. I mean, it was,
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, but yeah, don't call yourself a burger. All right, and then ketchup. You seem to be very anti-ketchup.
Yes, there's a reason for that. It's because ketchup is too sweet. It's a very overpowering sweetness as well.
Yeah.
I like barbecue sauce, which is
Mhm.
basically ketchup with lots of spices in it. But it still is sweet, but it has a much more, much more robust flavor to it. It's much more well-rounded. Ketchup is
Yeah.
just a one big, like, it's like a tomatoey, like maple syrup to me. Ugh,
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you 100%. Even with fries, even if I go fries, I'll go mustard.
Oh wow, yeah, I like mustard on fries too. I also like mayo on fries. So
Yeah.
I don't mind ketchup on fries. But when on a burger, the problem with the being on a burger is that you really want to taste the meat and the cheese, which is on a very different side of the flavor profile than ketchup. What happens with ketchup is that it literally just takes over and controls the flavor
Right.
of the burger, and you end up with a sweet, like, sugar bomb, which I don't
Right.
want when I'm eating a hamburger.
Yeah. I was thinking sugar bomb when you were talking. All right. Anything you want the people to know? Anything you've got you want to point them to?
Yes, I think that follow me on Instagram, MOTZ Burger, Motz Burger. That's probably the best way to. I update that all the time.
Awesome.
I'll tell you now, we're considering opening a restaurant.
I was thinking that.
Finally getting back on the road and doing some traveling, and I'm going to Europe, I think, in February, and then we're doing Smorgasburg in Los Angeles next week. So we're definitely
nice.
doing stuff. So we're out there finally doing stuff.
Oh, that's great. What do you mean when you're doing smorgasbord?
Oh, so I'm cooking.
Oh, really?
5 years ago when I made the cookbook, somebody in a news show said, "Can you make a burger in front of the audience and talk about it in 7 minutes?" I said, "Sure. I'll do the Oklahoma fried onion burger." And I made that burger for the crowd. Well, not for the crowd, for the host in front of the crowd. And the host took one bite and said, "Wow, that's really good." I grabbed that out of her hand, took a bite, and I said, "That is good." And so it became known as like my burger, which it's not my burger. It's from Oklahoma, but it's a very simple burger. It only has 5 ingredients. It's basically bun, salt, cheese, beef, and onion. That's it. And those together, when you cook it the right way, is perfect. So I've been making that burger a lot. I make it at Smorgasburg, and I make it at different events around the world.
Oh man. Well, we'll definitely run into each other. I love going over there. That's a good afternoon.
Excellent.
Yeah. Thanks for spending the time. I really appreciate it.
It's great talking to you. Thanks, man.
Yeah. And we got through the interview. All right, everybody. That's the big show. Happy to check in with you from the road out here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I'll be back shortly. Next week, we're going to talk to some crazy guys who are involved in the whiskey business and also get some comedy involved as well. We've got a couple big guests coming up in the next couple of weeks. I won't tease you with them now. There's some from the comedy world, some from the food world. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure you like and subscribe and tell your friends and keep the comments coming. Tell me what you like to hear, and we'll keep the conversation going. And until next time, enjoy your life.